Welcome to the Succeeding Over All Roadblocks Lifecast, a show about self-discovery and vibrating higher in every area of your life. Each week, I'll have conversations with some of my favorite people who are soaring over life's challenges. They'll share their struggles, but more importantly, the lessons they've learned along the way. I'm your host, Keisha Whitaker, entrepreneur and transformational speaker. Let's get ready to soar. This week, I wrap up Breast Cancer Awareness Month with a powerhouse guest who is not only a serial entrepreneur, but is a woman of great strength, wisdom, and courage. She will share her life-changing story and no-holds-barred approach to business and beating breast cancer. Carolyn Hardy is a trailblazer who has forged a path for many to follow. Starting off her career as a certified public accountant, she worked her way up the ranks of J.M. Smucker, breaking into the all-boys club and becoming the first African-American woman to become plant manager. Carolyn also served as Vice President of Services for Honeywell Palms Corporation and was the first African-American female Vice President of Coors. In 2006, Carolyn purchased the Coors brewery in Memphis, Tennessee, renaming it Hardy Bottling, and became the first African-American woman to own a major brewery. She was faced with a serious roadblock when she was diagnosed with breast cancer just weeks after purchasing the business. She later sold Hardy Bottling to City Brewing in 2011. In 2012, Carolyn founded Henderson Transloading Services, providing one-stop shopping for grain, lumber, and other goods that benefit from multimodal services. Carolyn is passionate about helping small businesses and industry growth through her support of the expansion of skilled manufacturing jobs. She is also an author of 3 books, serves on the boards of premier organizations, and boasts a number of awards for her business and philanthropic pursuits. Welcome, the legendary Carolyn Hardy, to the podcast. Carolyn, thanks so much for joining. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you, Keisha?
Doing well. And I just want to jump right in because you have such a wealth of knowledge and information. I'm ready to just dive right into your history, your background, what makes you tick. And so tell me a little bit about your upbringing and how you got to, I guess, this point now or your early career.
Well, my upbringing, as you know, started out poor. And I always wanted a different life than what I was living. We didn't have ice cream, simple things, cookies. We talk about bad eating habits. And I will tell you that there are very few bad eating habits when I was growing up because we couldn't afford them. And so I always wanted to have a different life. And I saw homes in East Memphis that were absolutely gorgeous, that looked very different than the way I was living. Now, our house, after my parents were able to buy a house, was a nice house in Orange Mound, but it wasn't like the houses in East Memphis, okay? It wasn't like the homes that my mom said she cleaned up, that she was a maid for. But my mom always, you said, how did I get the inspiration? My mom was a maid, but she always told us that she did not want us to be a maid. That was not her dream for us. Her dream for us was the life that she had given up to have us. She wanted a college education and she wanted independence, and she wanted to see how far she could push her career. Well, having 16 kids, the only career she was pushing was 16 kids, okay? And so, she really inspired us every single day. And a lot of times, Keisha, people, adults, will hide the truth, whether from the employee or from their kids. They don't want the kids to know the real them, the life that they live. I will tell you that my mother put her life on center stage so that we could understand what mistakes not to make. She had her first child when she was 18. And she always told us, she said, if you get married, you don't want to have a kid first couple of years of marriage because you don't know what you married, okay? And if you have a child, the guy's never going to go away, okay? He's going to constantly be in your life. we took that seriously. She felt that you want to marry someone who has something in common with you. So if I was driven and wanted, more of an education and so on, I need to find someone who was more like me, not someone who was competing with me, but someone who's going the journey with me. And so my upbringing, though tough, really opened up a lot of doors. My mom always said that, to be successful in business, and I truly believe this, and I know this to be true, you have to have a combination of book smarts and common sense. Book smarts and common sense. Because everything that you need to do that's going to happen to you in your life is not in the book. Okay? But a lot of things that's going to happen to you, you've experienced it somewhere in your life. And so I will say that my upbringing prepared me to do a lot of things. In business, when you start your company, you're going to have to do a lot with a little, right? You're not going to have a lot of money. You're not going to have a lot of time. So you're going to have to learn how to manage what you don't have. And you're going to have to still be able to put that front on that, hey, I know I don't have a lot of money. I don't have the world's best office. But, just take that for example. Let's say you're starting your business and you don't have this beautiful conference room and so on. What that means is that you go meet at some club, right, that has a conference room. Or you have a friend who has a nice office who will let you use their conference room. And it doesn't cost you the rent, it doesn't cost you the furniture. Am I right?
Right.
You have to learn how to leverage those relationships. And I think a lot of times, women and minorities, what we don't do, we don't ask. We don't ask for help. And like I said, that help can be a small thing. Small thing like, I need to use your office. Okay? And I've used offices before. When I started Hardy Bottling, I needed a neutral office. So I called my lawyer. And because, lawyers have great offices, right? They're always pretty. I called him and said, look, I need to use your office for a couple of hours. And guess what? Paul let me use his office, no charge. They weren't using it at that time, so they booked it for me. But we don't know to ask the question. And you know what? What's the worst thing that can happen to you if you ask a tough question that nobody wants to participate? The worst thing that can happen is no. That's exactly. I should tell people they're not going to shoot you, okay? I hadn't seen that happen yet, okay? So my upbringing was very, very instrumental in me becoming who I am today. It really is.
And I was reading in your book, Look Up 5 Principles for Intentional Leadership, where you talked about you moved several times growing up. And so I look at your story and I'm just amazed by how much you endured as one of 16 children. And my mother is one of 12. So I totally understand what that dynamic looks like. But what I do know is what you didn't have in material possessions was a wealth of love, was a wealth of support and the values that you have today. I think we can't trade our experiences for anything because it makes us who we are.
That's right.
And I think people who have an upbringing that is not the most wealthiest tend to strive harder, tend to want more, tend to go after more because they haven't had everything handed to them.
Yeah, there's 2 types of people that were in my community as I look at the outcome. And these are the same type of people you're seeing in business. The ones who were poor but didn't let the poorness define them and didn't even let them make it unhappy, but just put a plan together to get out, or the ones who were upset and angry because of where they were, okay? And that anger followed them throughout their lives. They were always mad, it wasn't good enough, they didn't give me what I needed. It was always somebody else that didn't give me. Well, my mom wouldn't accept welfare, okay? Now, 16 children, my mother qualified for welfare, she qualified for the projects. I never lived in the projects, and I never had welfare. My mother felt that if she accepted welfare, she said welfare is a cycle that people can't get out of, okay? All of a sudden, you find out that you can live in, public housing and meet your obligation, and you can go get food stamps to help meet that, as opposed to how do I work myself out of this situation? She felt that she preferred us to work our way out. So her rule was, if we didn't have sugar or eggs or whatever, then we didn't need sugar or eggs, okay? She preferred us to work our way out of the situation. In business, you've got to work your way out of situations. Nobody's going to hand you anything. They're not going to loan you the eggs, the sugar, the bacon. Okay? You're going to have to figure out how to move that needle. And I'll give you an example. We're in a pandemic right now. What I try to do is I try to reinvent myself in every situation and saying, what does the consumer need today? And how can I use my relationships? You don't have to own everything. My mom's always said you don't have to know everything. You just have to know who knows, okay? But you don't have to own everything. So the pandemic hit, and you asked, how do young people move to the next level? Well, I reached out, and there were some other minorities that were buying PPE and doing some things to support the pandemic, and we started talking to each other. So now I know a gentleman in Annapolis whose specialty is chemicals. So whenever I need Clorox or something that's chemical related, I call Tim, okay? And I met another gentleman down in Florida who has a warehouse over in Arkansas. He needs some hand sanitizer. Well, in addressing the pandemic, since we have a beverage company, we started putting hand sanitizer in a pouch. We said, okay, we got all this capacity. What can we do with it? Am I right?
Right.
And so, but what you have to do is that you've got to work together and figure out what each one of you do best. It is not important that you do everything best. Okay? If you can find 3 or 4 people who are different, but perfect in their own way, but not perfect in your way, you will have an amazing team. Amazing. But the problem is most people don't think like that. They think they got to be all things to all people. I'm not. Right. I don't try to be all things to all people.
Well, I feel like you are all things because you're doing so much. So, you started out in manufacturing, now you're in agriculture.
Well, I started out in accounting. Now I'm an accountant by profession.
Yes. You started out in accounting. Talk about that. Talk about your background.
Well, my journey, when I started college, I was going to be a lawyer, Keisha. You told me to say things people didn't know. I was going to go to law school, okay? And I always check the salaries. And I ask young people today, well, what salary? You want to be that? So what do you expect to earn per year, okay? Well, when I was in college, I was 16, and I graduated from high school at 16, started college at 17. Now I was trying to figure out what I want to be. I was really intrigued with lawyers. And then I started looking I spent a lot of time at the library. And in Memphis, there's a lot of lawyers. And I saw what the average wage for a lawyer was. And it wasn't the number I was looking for, okay? So then I went to check business, and the accountants, there were CFOs, and they were VPs of finance, and they had all these jobs that paid a lot of money, right? And I decided, you know what, I'm going to be an accountant. I was always really good with numbers. I counted ever since I could talk, and I've been going to the grocery store, shopping for my mom since I could walk, since I was 4. I used to go down the Cooper Young area because we lived in that area. That's one of my stops. I used to walk down to the store while my older siblings were at school. But I decided to major in accounting, and it really opened a lot of doors. And I told my middle daughter this, and she truly believes this now. When people want to own their own business, young people who are going to college, I said, guys, one of the majors is accounting. Because in accounting, you have to take marketing, you have to take sales, you have to take real estate, you have to take insurance. The curriculum is pretty broad. So it really helps you when you go out in the business. You've touched on a lot of things, okay? You're not an expert at it, but you've touched on. You know the topic, you know the words, you know the buzzwords. So I decided to major in accounting, and I came out and I started working for Smucker as an accountant. But what I learned a lot, but the competition was tough. At the top, I learned out right away that there's one CFO and there's about 200 accountants, okay, or if not more. And so that 200 is all trying to get to that one position. But the job that I saw that nobody was paying any attention to was the plant manager. Everybody wasn't trying to be the plant manager. In most plant managers' hierarchy, there may have been 2 people going for it, okay, versus 200. So I decided that I need to switch gears and become a plant manager.
I think the road less traveled is always the way to go.
Now that's the riskier way. Okay, don't make sure people understand that. But it is the best way to go. And when
let me ask you this.
Go ahead.
Well, so how did you, I'm just curious how you got into the manufacturing and more so the male-dominated industries that you're in, how did you even get to Smucker? Was that just by chance or what?
I graduated from college with my degree in accounting. And, I didn't know anything about recruiting fairs. That wasn't pushed where Black people knew to go with these companies to give you an internship. And none of that. No. I was out there with my resume. I didn't have an internship, going to these different companies with my resume. And I walked in, and I had done this probably 10 times, Keisha. I would walk into these companies that did not have any Blacks on their staff. And I would say, I am absolutely amazing. I'm really good at what I do. I'm the type of person you really want to hire. And I said, but you know what? Now, keep in mind, I am poor, okay? I said, to demonstrate that I am as good as I say I am, I'll work for you for 2 months for free. I offer to work for these people for free. And I would have to beg to get money to get out there because we were so broke. But I wanted to demonstrate because they did not have the experience working with a Black, whether Black female or Black male. And so I wanted to say, there's no cost to you, no risk to you. I have enough confidence in myself that I know you're going to keep me after that, okay? I apparently impressed somebody so much at Smucker's that they said, we're going to give her a chance. And I never had to work free.
And what year was this?
I'm not going to say that, Keisha. I'm just 30 years old. Come on. Okay.
Well, I'm just trying to get a sense because you just said they had never worked with Black people. So
it was over 30 years ago.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it was over 30 years ago. And there were it wasn't just that there were no Black managers. All the white women were clerks. So there were no women managers either, okay? And so my years at Smucker's, I was the first female to get into the Good Old Boys Club. First female, Black or white. First one. And they accepted me because they accepted me on my journey to them, okay? They said I was really smart. I didn't want anything for nothing. I want what I deserved. And whether that was pay. And I mean, I would go to them and I'd wait till I knew I was perfect. I knew that there was nobody better than me. I do my research. I always do my research, okay? I knew what that position should be paying. And within a year or so, I always got my money. And I was always professional about it. But I always, I feel that if you allow a corporation to underpay you, then you're not just affecting yourself, but you're affecting other women and other people of color, okay? So you've got to address it where you are. We have got to take more control, Keisha, of our own destiny. We've got to take more control. For me, the big push right now is that I want to see a lot of women and African-American companies become large. I'm talking $100, $200 million companies. And then we can promote our own.
So how do we get there? How do we get there?
When I owned Hardy Bottling, every exec was a woman. That's the only beverage company in the United States where every exec was a female. Bernadette, Marie was a white female, Bernadette was a Black female. And I was the CEO. There were no other high-ups in the company. Nobody higher than 3 of us. Never happened, okay? Guess why that could happen? I own the company.
Right.
Okay? Until we own our destiny, we're going to be at someone else's mercy. So we're going to have to decide mercy or destiny. Pick.
So to your point, there are a number of, Black women-owned businesses are blowing up. Every year there's so many more Black-owned businesses that are starting. But access to capital is an issue.
We're not scaling up, right?
Right, exactly. Like I am a woman-owned business, but it's just a woman of one. I may outsource, I may do other things, but how do I scale that up? And how do other smaller businesses begin to think about, like you said, collaborating and scaling up?
Well, Keisha, I wrote a new book called Step Out, okay? And the new book is all about making bold moves to scale up. It talks about every topic you can think of, whether that's, how to finance the venture. One thing is financing the business, but then there's another thing to finance an idea. Okay, let me tell you the difference there. When I started Hardy Bottling, I had to finance the venture, right? The company. When you're within the company, you have ideas that need to be financed. And remember the little slim, tall can, 12-ounce can, but it's real skinny. It's not like your standard Coke can, okay? They call that industry standards what the formal name for a Coke can is. But you got the slim one that they use for energy drinks.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I could make all the cans, but I couldn't make the most popular can. I could not. My packaging lines needed change parts in order to produce that slim can. So I have all this investment here, millions and millions of dollars worth of equipment, but I didn't have $300,000 to buy parts for this can. And so I talk about this in the book. There's a couple of ways. One, you can go to the bank. Not going to happen because the bank does not loan money for parts, okay? It would be like the bank loaning you money for just tires on your car. They're not going to do that, okay? A loan company might, but the bank's not going to do that. Family and friends, they don't understand it well enough. And so me and my team, we said, how in the world are we going to get this $300,000? We started thinking about who else would benefit if I could produce that can. Who else could benefit from our $10 million investment here by leveraging $300,000? The can company. They could sell more cans. So we listed the can company. Then the next question we asked was, who do we have a relationship with? Because you got 3 can companies. You got Ball, you got Crown, and you got Brexham. And so we had the best relationship with Ball. Had an okay relationship with Wrexham, but they weren't spending money, and Crown wasn't big enough, okay? And so called Ball, made my proposition, said, look what we can do for you. Not for me, okay? What can we do for you? And made my pitch. 24 hours, I had the $300,000. 24 hours. 2 months later, I was running that can. And all of my financial problems went away. I would tell people to look at those customers to try to understand what other service can you provide. Because they already know the quality of your service. They know how to contact you. You're already in their accounting system. They don't want to register another vendor. Even if you have to outsource part of what you do for them, you deliver that service to the customer until your capacity as a company is broad enough that you can bring that in-house. But I always tell people, grow with the customers that you have. And that's what we do. I mean, we try to offer different supplies than we offered before. Like we weren't offering lighting. And so we have a relationship with Philips Lighting and with some other lighting companies here in town. So that we have a relationship with 3 or 4 lighting companies that we can go out and we can bid on lighting projects. And whether it's a high-end light or just a everyday light, we can deliver that. But it's the same customer. And so when my guy is delivering electrical parts or valves or motors, he can now just put lights on the same truck. So my cost of delivery is almost zero because they were going that direction anyway.
There was something that I read in your book, and I'm going to switch gears a little bit because it was just when you were running the bottling company. And you talk about how, one, you were diagnosed with breast cancer, just as like you kind of just had bought the company.
3 weeks.
Wow. Talk about that a little bit. And what was the first thing you felt when you heard that news?
When I got the call from Dr. Tishwani, I was at the hairdresser. I'll never forget that day. And she said, Carolyn, I got something I need to talk to you about. It's about 6 o'clock in the evening. And she said, you have a minute? I said, sure. I mean, a doctor calling me at 6 o'clock at night is not something that, not normal. And she said, I want to tell you, your mammogram came back and it was abnormal. She said they were concerned about what they saw. And we need you to come in right away for another test. I said, okay. She's already made an appointment, so she told me what the appointment was. Okay, I'll be there. Keisha, when I hung up that phone, I'm saying, your mind's just whizzing. I'm saying, oh my God. Dr. Tishwani is calling me at 6 o'clock at night. That's not good news. Obviously, they saw something that was not insignificant. And I had put millions of dollars in this company, of my family's money. I was thinking, my husband could have raised the kids and they would have an amazing life with the money I put in that company. They wouldn't have missed a beat if I had not spent the money. But I had spent the money. It was gone. And they needed me to live in order to, survive. And I said, so Carolyn, you've got to survive. And so the next week, I was getting prepped for my next procedure. And I had to go in and get some blood pressure work and some blood work and stuff like that so they could do the next round of tests. And so I called Phil. Phil was going to come work for me starting in January. Keep in mind, this is late September. And I said, Phil, you got to resign. I said, I've got a major problem, and I need you to come in. And so now I've got to staff the business so that it can run without me. Okay? I had Bernadette, so I needed Phil to come, and I had Marie. So I felt that they could go on if I was out of pocket for a few months, if that was necessary. And so that made me feel good that my team was coming together. And so I go in for the first round, and they do a needle biopsy, and they can't find where the cancer stops. So that's October. That's my needle biopsy. November, so after that, Dr. Tishwan sits me down again and says, Carolyn, they're gonna have to get a lot more aggressive. And so you're gonna have to have a mastectomy. And she said, your breast is not worth your life. I said, I would agree with that. I'm a very practical person, okay? Breast not worth my life. And I said, I'm with you. It's not. I told her I had a challenge. My loan agreements, which was hard money lenders, would not allow me to be sick. They could call the loan. So I told them I was not allowed to talk about it. My kids had to keep it secret. I couldn't share it with the employees at work other than Phil and Bernadette. They knew. I had to keep it to myself. I wasn't allowed to broadcast it or anything. Even when I was feeling bad, I had to act like I was feeling good. And so November, I had the mastectomy. And I'm fortunate that I've always been in great shape. I decided to have the mastectomy the Friday before Thanksgiving because the doctor required me to be off a week. And I didn't have time to be off. I'm trying to start a company. So I told him if he did it the Friday before Thanksgiving, I only had to take 3 days off because Thursday and Friday was Thanksgiving and nobody worked. My employees didn't work on Thanksgiving the day after. And I said, so that's a natural way to get me to sit down and be still. And so I had the surgery on the Friday. It was Thursday or Friday. I think it was Thursday. Went home on Friday. Stopped taking the medication on Saturday, the pain medicine, didn't take it anymore. And went back to see the doctor on Tuesday for a follow-up. And when I went in, I walked really fast. And he was trying to keep up with me. And he says, didn't you just have surgery? I said, yeah. He said, and you walk this fast. I said, well, it's normal for me to walk this fast. And he said, you're not drowsy. You don't look like you've been on any medication. He said, what's going on with you? He said, I have never seen anybody look as healthy as you do. And I said, well, number one, I don't take your medication. The pain medicine. He said, you're kidding. I said, no. He said, when did you stop taking it? I said, as soon as I got home. And he said, you're kidding. I said, nope. I said, I flushed myself out with water to get all the medicine out of my system from the surgery. And I said, so today and he said, so what do you do for pain? I said, at home I walk slow. I said, you just got to move a little bit. You got to be very practical in your movement. Be very precise. He said, that's pretty good. I said, but you can't think and you can't have your wits about you with drugs in your system. You really can't. And then, of course, the next Monday, I was back at the office again. And in January, so that's November. December, I had the portacat put in. January, the portacat came out. I had to go back into surgery. So I had surgery in October, November, December, and January. I had surgery every month for 4 months. And I only missed 3 days from the office. And then I started chemo, which lasted a year and a half. I only did chemo on Fridays at 2 o'clock because, chemo makes you feel bad. So once I did my chemo, I could go home and I had 2 days to get healthy again before Monday came around. And, you know, I never felt sorry for myself during that time. I was concerned for my kids and my family. I just didn't feel that God brought me this far to fail. I really didn't. So I had faith that I was going to be okay. I had a really good attitude. I never felt sorry for myself. I never had pity parties. I see people now that walk around and they look for sympathy. They're looking for a pity party. And what it does, it affects them in ways that they don't understand. It not just affects them, but it affects their family, their kids. You know what I mean? And so if everybody around you is morbid, that's not healthy. The healthiest person around is a happy person. Happiness is a positive. It's positive medicine. It really is. And I try to encourage people that the fact that the cancer was caught, that's a positive. Before I ever do anything that's major, I always go get a physical. Okay, so I was out of cycle for my mammogram, by the way. So I was buying the brewery. I had a complete physical in August. They couldn't get me in for the mammogram until September. Before I started my job with Coors had to send me for a full physical workup because I knew it would take a lot of energy to do that job. So I always go get a complete physical to make sure that I'm up to the job. I'm up for that job, okay? And I didn't finish it. But you know what, Keisha, think about it. Maybe that was by design because maybe I would have taken the journey if I found out in August I had cancer. We wouldn't have been brave enough to put that money up, right?
Right.
And so maybe that was part of the plan.
So where did you have to go mentally? Where do you pull that from?
It comes from my mom. We rarely saw her, Keisha, with a pity party. And as we got older, we found that Mom never ate until we had eaten, until we were satisfied that we had had enough. And if there was nothing left, she just didn't eat that meal. But you never heard her complain. I'm talking about never. My mom had a sore on her leg. There was a fire when I was in the 3rd grade that burned our house down when I went to Lincoln Elementary School. And I had walked back to the back. It was a wood house, bad house. I'm sure it wasn't worth much. And I thought I smelled something. So we were all sitting in the little living room. So I got up and went back. And sure enough, as soon as I opened that door, flames just flew through, okay? Well, Mom had 2 babies. They were back in the other room, in the crib, where the flames were. She told all of us to get out of the house and don't come back in, that she had to go get her babies. This lady goes back there, Keisha. Now, I'm in the 3rd grade, and she gets these 2 kids. She comes out, and the house is just now, all you see is just fire, okay? She comes flying out, eyebrows singed, hair singed. She's got her 2 babies. Kathy wasn't hurt. John got burned. But Mom got burned on the leg, on her right leg. 3rd grade. Do you know her leg leaked for 5 years, 4 or 5 years? She couldn't get good health care. And she finally found a doctor that was over at Airways. I remember going there with her, who drained it and told her what she had to do to get that leg well. And she finally did. But can you imagine going that many years with a medical problem because you don't have the right health care, you don't have the right money, you just don't have access. But she never complained. We never saw her in a pity party. My mom got up and cooked 3 meals a day every day. She cleaned that house to where it was perfect. We were almost neat freaks because of her. Can you imagine 16 kids? Seriously, she's a neat freak. She was a neat freak. And so now we're the same way. Things can't be out of place, okay? My mom she changed the sheets on the bed every day. I'm serious, because there were so many people, you couldn't use the same sheets. She had to wash them every day. She washed the clothes every day because we didn't have so many clothes. And she never complained. So we grew up learning to never complain. Figure out how to solve it. Figure it out. And so, when I had my 3rd child, I always wanted 2 children. I got pregnant with number 3. And I was in my 30s. And so I was over at her house one day, and I said, I had to tell her I was pregnant. And she said, well, you don't seem to be too happy about that. And I said, well, I only want 2 kids. And as far as I can count, this is number 3, okay? And she said, okay, so you're complaining about me pregnant with number 3. She said, you can afford it. She said, I know you can. She said, because you've never heard for money because you're too cheap. And she said, she did. She said, you're cheap. So she said, I know you can afford it. She said, so it's an inconvenience. She said, that's your complaint. This is an inconvenience for you. I said, yeah, I guess there's a different way to look at it, but yeah. She said, don't expect any sympathy from me. She said, because I had 16 children and I had none of the support that you have. I had none of the systems, none of the network, none of the wealth. And she said, you're complaining about being inconvenient. She says, you will get no sympathy from me. I left there, Keisha, and I never said another word. And she said, children are blessings. You need to see this as a gift. And I had my son, who is an absolutely amazing young man. We are so close. Sometimes Jennifer will say, well, if Chris calls Mom, she'll take the call. But he is absolutely, and of course, Jennifer and Whitney are amazing as well. But, sometimes in life, we don't know where our gifts are. See, if we stop complaining long enough to give it time to be born, whether that's an idea, whether it's an opportunity to learn something different, whether it's your business, if we just take the time to enjoy it, we may find that we have a gift that we didn't know about. And sometimes that's your business. Because I tell you, business is your baby at times, It is. You're birthing something that could be absolutely amazing if you give it the time and the right attitude. So I got it from my mom.
So the question that I ask all of my guests, and I think it's so appropriate for the podcast, is if everything was taken away, the money, the material possessions, everything, the accolades, the business, all of that, who is Carolyn Hardy?
As long as you don't take my family away, my siblings and my kids, I'll be okay. I'm happiest when I'm with my family. I don't need a lot of things, and I don't. Most people would be shocked. I don't need a lot of anything. So I wouldn't miss those things. I need quiet. I need my Apple computer. You can have everything else. But no, I'm a real simple person. And as long as I can call my family, my sisters and my brothers, and call my kids and my husband, honestly, I'll be okay. But you don't need you don't need a lot of things. I see people that they're just shocked at things I don't need. We were at a jewelry store and somebody said, well, don't you want that Rolex watch? I said, to me, it's just a watch. It's just a watch. What does it do? Tell time. That's all it does. And you know what I told them, Keisha? The people I hang around with don't know the difference between a Rolex and a Timex, okay? My world, they don't know the difference. So the only person who knows I got a Rolex on will be me. Okay? And I'm not trying to impress myself. Am I right?
Right.
I say it all the time. I say, ask my family. My siblings, they would think I lost my mind. They said, you got a what on your arm? Okay? Tell me I was wasting money. So no, my siblings are really important to me. And I was raised simple, and I'm simple to this day. So
that's what I admired about you, is how grounded you are. And you put in the work. You let the work speak for you. You toot your horn when you need to toot your horn. But you have blazed so many trails for women, and you're continuing to open doors for women. And not only just women, but Black-owned businesses, as being an advocate and having a voice and a seat at the table in a lot of important rooms and conversations. What is a call to action for business owners or the Black community in general to help bridge the gap for our children, for the future workforce, for the future of this city, and also for ourselves?
A call to action is that we've got to get behind the uncomfortable. Transformational change is never comfortable. If the degree of change that you're embracing is comfortable, it's not transformation. So as we look at education, we're going to have to come up with things that we've not thought of before. And we're going to get a lot of negative public opinion on being radical, but our kids are worth it. So when we say we don't want to be uncomfortable, then I think the next thought we need to have is our kids worth it? The change is radical. Is our kids worth it? The change is expensive. Is our kids worth it? Is our future worth it as a country? So we're going to have to start pushing these questions. When they hit us with, I don't want to do this is uncomfortable, this is abnormal, we're going to have to say, is our kids worth it? Is our future worth it?
Well, Carolyn, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to join me on my podcast. It's been an honor to have you on, to just listen to your wisdom and your knowledge in so many areas. So thank you for being here.
Well, Keisha, thank you for having me, and look forward to next time.
Thank you. And I'll have all of your information in our description box, how people can find you and get in touch with you. And we'll just see you next week.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Succeeding Over All Roadblocks Lifecast. Follow the show on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at SOAR Lifecast for more tips and motivation. You can also email questions to soarlifecast@gmail.com. Be sure to catch new episodes every week and leave a review of the show. Until then, keep soaring.